Tēnā koutou katoa. Welcome everybody to our presentation today, where we're going to be looking at Matariki. We're going to be looking at Matariki and really delving into how Matariki was applied and understood by Māori. And we're also going to really delve into how Matariki influences our understanding of time and our relationship to our environment. So to start with, I've got a little phrase here, Matariki e ārau ana. Now this phrase comes from a waiata or a song, and it means Matariki clustering in the sky. So the word ārau means to cluster together or to group together. And the essence of the saying is, as Matariki clusters and groups together in the sky, people cluster together and come together on earth to celebrate the rising of Matariki and to celebrate the Māori New Year. So before we go any further, I just want to start and open our presentation with a karakia, or a prayer that talks about the many different stars in the sky and how they came to be there.
Ko wakaro te rā taputau purua iho te rangi ti, hore te rangi waruhia ki a mātou koe ki te kete ata, ne homai hei tohu moto na matu i te rangi. Tā taiti a rā ti whai a ki runga rā ki a Matariki ki a tutahi ki a rehua ki a takurua ki a tautoru. Ki a whanui ki a pūanga ki a pautu, te rangi ki a marere o tonga ki a tari ao ki a whakahunuku ki a whakahurangi. Ki a kōpū ki a pare ārau ki a taumatakuku ki a te kokota ki a whiti kaupeka ki a mari ao. Ki a hotu i te hirangi ki a pia wai ki a o tamara kau ki no Whetū tapu o te tau. Ringi hia i teke teko te ika nui o te rangi ka ngaro ki runga rāti he Māori ora. Manawa mai e te putanga o Matariki, manawa mai e te ariki o te rangi, manawa mai e te mātahi o te tau.
So we're here to talk about Matariki. And Matariki is known across the globe as the cluster of stars that we call the Pleiades. And it is such an important and recognized group of stars in the night sky. And even in the ancient world, Matariki is the first recorded and most well-recorded group of stars in the sky. This is a cave painting. It's estimated to be about 20,000 years old. And it comes from France. And here you can see this bull. And just above the shoulder of the bull is this group of stars here that are said to be the Pleiades. And here is a star disk, was dug out of the ground in Germany. It's thought to be about 5,000 years old, and it shows the sun, the moon, and this group of stars here, which is said to be the Pleiades. In Asia, it has a number of interpretations. Japan, it is Subaru. It was also known in China as the Blossom Stars, and it was the first recorded group of stars of an astronomical record that goes back at least 3,500 years. In Europe, it has a number of interpretations. One is Freya's chicks or Freya's hens, and here's a Freya here who has her children around her, being drawn across the night sky by a chariot that's pulled along by two cats. Not too sure what's going on here. One of my clever relations told me that this must be a Cadillac. It was also related to the Maypole Festival when it was seen in the sky around May. People would light fires and dance around a maypole. And that's just some of the understandings of the Pleiades within Europe. In the Middle East, it was connected to Nit or Neith, which is also again connected to the bull or bovine. It was said to be a star that was associated very closely with fertility. In the Americas and in South America in particular, it was part of a massive cosmic snake. And the South American people believed that if the Pleiades was viewed very clear and very bright in the morning, that it was going to be a very prosperous season, very similar to how Māori and other parts of the Pacific and Polynesia view the star. In Australia, it was said to be 7 females that escaped from 7 males and turned themselves into stars and were placed in the sky. And probably the most well-known and widely understood discussion about the Pleiades comes from the Greeks, the 7 sisters. These are the 7 daughters of Atlas and Pollione. In that Greek cluster of the Pleiades, there are actually 9 stars that are given names. And here it is, situated in the shoulder of Taurus the bull, just as it was situated just above the shoulder of the bull in that 20,000-year-old cave painting from southern France. And here they are. You'll see Atlas and Pollione and their 7 children, or their 7 daughters, hence the name 7 Sisters. Now, it is said that one of the interpretations and translations of the Pleiades means a flock of doves. This is because Zeus, who was the main god according to the Greeks, he wanted to take all of these children, all of these daughters, as wives. And their father Atlas said no, and he turned them into a flock of doves and placed them in the sky, just to get away from Zeus. So here they are. And this is how you'll see this group of stars if you're in the northern hemisphere. And quite often we see an image like this posted during the Matariki season saying this is Matariki, but this is not Matariki. We never see this constellation like this here in the southern hemisphere. We actually see it like this. So it's around the other way. The only time you'll really see it as they do in the northern hemisphere is if you go there or if you do a handstand while you're looking at the sky. And I have 9 stars within my record of Matariki. Now this differs for many, many cultures across the globe. There are records of 6, 7, 9. The Prophet Muhammad saw 12 stars and named them all. There's even a record of 15 stars, and a lot of factors come into play when determining the number of stars within Matariki. Light pollution, where you are on the earth, the clarity of your night sky, your elevation, and just your ability to see the stars. Not everyone sees the stars the same way. Some of us have much better eyesight than other people. And here they are, the 9 stars of Matariki, or Te Iwo Matariki. Matariki here is the mother of these other children that surround her in the night sky. Now, Matariki is not just a name that's connected to Māori. Right across the Pacific and right across Polynesia, Matariki, or a name similar to Matariki, is the name that's attached to this group of stars. So here you can see the connection that Matariki has right throughout the Pacific and Polynesia. Right up into the Marshall Islands, across to Easter Island, to Aotearoa, into the Cook Islands, to New Caledonia, it is Matariki. Makaliki, Ma'ali'i, it has a number of variations, but fairly much universally it is translated as the eyes of the gods or the eyes of the chief. Mata being eyes, Ariki being god or chief. However, for some reason, every year we seem to translate this group of stars as little eyes. So mata can be translated and as eyes, and riki means little. And so there is no piece of evidence that I can find after 20 years of research in this space that confirms that it is little eyes, not just in Aotearoa, but right across Polynesia and the Pacific. Here in Aotearoa, this actually is a translation that was done by the ethnologist Elson Best. So he saw the name Matariki and thought, well, mata means eyes, riki means little, so it's little eyes. And he doesn't have any narrative, any supporting evidence, any support from any Maori person to say it's little eyes. My ancestor says that the name Matariki is a truncated version of the phrase ngā mata o te ariki tāwhiri mātea, or the eyes of the god tāwhiri mātea, which is shortened to Matariki, and we truncate again to Matariki. Māori do this. Someone will have a big long flash name, like ngā pautoko manawa o ngā rangitu haha, I piki ai a tāne ki te tiki te mātauranga, and we'll call them Pau. So it's quite a universal thing. All people do that. And you don't want to look at the star and say, that is ngā mata o te ariki tāwhiri mātea. You say, that's Matariki. And so the next clip that I'm about to play will give you an understanding of why it is called the eyes of the god tāwhiri mātea.
In the beginning, Sky Father Rangi Nui and Earth Mother Papatuanuku lay in a close embrace with their many sons between them. For eons they lay within the confinement of an unbreakable bond, or so it seemed. But within the shroud of darkness festered a rebellion that threatened to tear them apart. The sons of Rangi and Papa had gathered in secret. He kaupapa kei te haere, te wehenga o Rangi rawa ko Papa. There was much bickering amongst the brothers, but in the end, all but one was in agreement. Tāwhiri Mātea, god of the winds and storms, did not approve of the separation and vowed revenge. With the help of his brothers, Tāne separated their parents. Using his powerful legs, Tāne thrust his father up into the heavens, causing an almighty explosion that resounded across the cosmos. Deaf to the anguish of their suffering parents, the brothers reveled in their freedom, but it was not what they expected. It was an expanse of dark and cold emptiness that quickly filled with a great flood of their parents' tears. The brothers were miserable and cold in their newfound freedom. Amidst the rain and from the darkness, lightning flashed. A figure of dread emerged. It was Tāwhiri Mātea. The world fell before Tāwhiri and his wind children, who were intent on one simple purpose: revenge. One by one, the brothers were defeated by Tāwhiri Mātea. First Tāne, then Tangaroa. Eventually, only a defiant Tūmatauenga, god of war and humanity, remained. An epic fight ensued, a clash of titans. Tū was twisted in the air and slammed back into the ground, followed by a lightning bolt that Tū caught and hurled back at Tāwhiri. Tāwhiri launched a continuous stream of wind and lightning. Thunder resounded, the ground heated and cracked beneath them. Tū heaved mightily against Tāwhiri, his legs locked on the earth, and slowly but surely he advanced against his brother Tāwhiri. Quicker than the eye could see and the mind could comprehend, Tū reached out and caught Tāwhiri Mātea. With all his strength and might, Tū smashed Tāwhiri repeatedly into the ground. Tāwhiri Mātea was defeated. However, Tāwhiri Mātea, vowing to never let his brothers forget, had one final act of defiance. Clawing out his eyes in anguish and grief, he crushed them in his hands and cast the shards into the heavens. As if still possessing sight, Tāwhiri turned his hollow gaze to Tū Matauenga, uttering one final warning.
Know this, I will attack you and your children forever. I will rain down chaos and destruction. I will have my vengeance. Karanaki with the matea taku matua. You and yours will never escape me. Every time you look to the skies, you will see the mata of the ariki. Tāwhiri Mātea, Matariki, and remember, when you gaze upon our Father, my eyes will look down on you and remind you of what you have done.
So, Māori do not name anything without it having a narrative. We don't look at a mountain and say, well, that mountain looks like a bob, I'll call it Bob. There was always a narrative, there was always a story, there was always a connection, a cultural connection back to the name. And so after the separation of Rangi and Papa, you would have seen in that clip, the brother that disagreed was the god of the winds and weather, Tāwhiri Mātea. And Matariki is very connected to weather, and we'll see that soon. And he warred with his brothers, punishing them for separating his parents until he got to our God, the God of mankind and the God of war, which is Tū. And there was an epic battle, but he could not defeat Tū, and Tū cast him down. And so in his anguish and his hatred towards his brothers, and also out of love for his father, he mutilated himself. He tore his eyes out. Now they weren't soft and gooey because he's a god. He tore out these stars and he crushed them in his hands and threw them into the sky, and they stuck to his father's chest. And this is ngā mata o te ariki Tāwhiri Mātea, the eyes of the god Tāwhiri Mātea, which becomes Matariki, the eyes of the god, Matariki. And again, here they are here. Now, yes, they are giant balls of gas burning thousands of light years from the earth, and that's one way of looking at it, but Māori also view them as deity. They are understood to be connected to our environment. They have an association with what happens to us on earth. They actually have their own genealogy. They even have their own gender. And here are the 9 stars. And one of the things that I also have an issue with in the research is when people say there are these 7 Māori princesses or 7 Māori females in the sky. Again, there is no Māori narrative to support that. And that is what I believe is part of the colonisation of Māori narratives. Because colonisation is all-encompassing. And what happens is when settlers came through and started to change Māori religious practices, started to infiltrate into Māori culture, and Māori began to take on some legends and narratives and understandings that were not Māori but actually come from the other side of the planet. And the 7 Sisters, which is a Greek understanding, started to infiltrate into Māori belief systems. But my understanding is this is the cluster. These are the children of the star here, Matariki. And each and every one of them has a purpose and a connection to activities that happen here on the earth. And I just want to go quickly through each and every one of them. So apart from Matariki, the oldest in the cluster is Pōhutukawa. Now, Pōhutu kawa, people say, oh, lovely, it's the New Zealand Christmas tree, and it is, but this star is actually connected to the dead, and is said to be the star that carries our dead across the night sky, night after night, month after month, year after year. And I'll come back to Pōhutu kawa because she plays such a crucial role in Māori practices and Māori beliefs associated with Matariki. The next star, another female, Tipu Ānuku, or Tupu Ānuku. That's just a dialectual difference. I say tipu, Ata will say tupu. That's just because we come from different regions, and she's wrong. But it means to grow in the ground. And this is a star that is connected to your gardens and everything that grows in your garden. So by the way that the star appears in the morning sky around this time, you will determine what your gardens are going to be like in the new season. Now the next star is the oldest male in the cluster, and this is Tipu Ārangi. Tipu again, or tipu, means to grow, and ārangi means in the sky. And if you ask what grows in the sky, well, birds do, and berries above your trees. And this star will determine how many wood pigeons you're going to get and harvest for the year, traditionally, not anymore. The next star in the cluster is another female, Whetū. Whetū means fresh water. Wai is obviously water, Whetū is fresh water. And she is connected to all of the rivers and the lakes and the streams and all of the creatures and the animals that were harvested and come from this domain. Then next up is her brother. Here he is here, Waitā. Waitā, tā is an old word for salt. So tōtā means sweat, Waitā means salt water. And this star is the star that will let you know how much fish you're going to catch in the next season. The next one is the first star that actually connected to the weather. And here she is right up the top here. Her name is Waipunarangi. That means water that pools in the sky or rain. And this star will really determine how much rain we're going to get in the next season. And right next to Waipunarangi in the sky is her younger brother. Here he is here, Ururangi. Ururangi means wind. So uruhau, urutapu, they are all connected to winds. And if this star is seen in a particular fashion, very hard to see in the morning sky, it's an indication that it's going to be a very, very windy season. And the final star in the cluster, and perhaps my personal favourite, is this star here. This is Hiwei Te Rangi. Hiwei Te Rangi is the star that Māori wish upon in the hope that their wishes will come true. So we would look for the star in the early morning sky around this time of year, and we would send our wishes to the star in the hope that Hiwa will make our wishes come true. And here is this cluster. Now, they're not randomly placed there. They actually have a purpose and the positioning of the stars. They're not random. So Matariki is the central star because she is the mother and is said to be the guider, or the person that guides the rest of the stars across the night sky. Obviously, Pōhutu kawa is here. She's the eldest. I have no idea why she's there, nor do I understand why Hiwei Te Rangi is here. But I do know that these are the two sacred stars within the cluster. One cares for our dead, and the other one really takes care of our wishes and our hopes and dreams for the new season. Tipu ānuku, tipu ārangi. Always rangi is above nuku, never the other way round. It's just basic. right? Food from the sky, food from the earth. Female, male. There is balance in this part of the cluster. They are connected to food, so there is no tapu in this part of the cluster. That's why they're here. Waiti, waitā. Female, male, balance. Freshwater, saltwater. Why is she above him? Because freshwater always flows downhill to saltwater, never the other way around. So that's why they're positioned there. Waipunarangi, ururangi. Female, male, rain, wind. Why are they above everything else? Because rain and winds come from above everything else. So it's really, I suppose, it's like a map or a blueprint of our entire environment and everything that was very important to Māori in terms of our weather indicators and our environmental factors. So we have earth, sky, freshwater, saltwater, rain, wind, birth, death, beginning, end, and it's all guided by the mother, and she's actually connected to well-being. So our ancestors would come out in the morning sky in the correct lunar month of the correct lunar phase, just before the sun rose, and they would look at this cluster like this, and they could tell, depending upon the way that the cluster appears, what their season was going to be like. So if all of the stars are bright and easy to see, it's going to be a very good season. If they're clustered together and difficult to see, then it's a sign that it's going to be a lean season. Now, many of you might be thinking, that's ridiculous, they look the same every year. I can tell you after viewing it for more than 20 years, if you spend long enough looking at it year after year, you actually notice subtle differences in the cluster. If this star here, for instance, is bright, I know that it's going to be a very, very good year to plant gardens. Now this star here, waitā, might be difficult to see. So I know, okay, I'm going to focus on gardens this year because it's going to be less, I guess, bountiful in the ocean this year. Now this star might be hard to see, which means it's going to be a windy year, which might be an indicator why I can't get out to the ocean to fish. So I'm looking for combinations in the sky. It's not all good year, bad year. There's no year where everything is absolutely good, nor is there a year where everything is absolutely bad. Some years are more difficult than others. Last year, I saw Matariki for the first time in the many, many years that I've seen it, and it was spread further apart than I can remember ever. It was very, very clear, spread really far apart, and that was a sign that we were going to have a very long summer. That's the record that's been recorded when it's seen e tā whiti whiti ana, spread, and it was really, really spread far apart. I knew from that sign, according to the record, that we were going to have a very long summer. And where I was, we did, and I think the whole country had a very long summer. The other star that really stood out for me was this one here. It was actually very bright, as was this star here. I knew that gardens would be good, but I knew with this one here that it was bright, which meant it would rain. But when it rained, it would be these massive, massive downpours, and then it would stop. It would be an inconsistent rain. It would be very strong, and then it would stop. And the other star that I noticed as well was this one. And it was my, I guess, read that the eels were going to run in large numbers. And where I was, that actually happened. So, I mean, I'm telling you this now after the event, but I can tell you that when I first saw Matariki come up last year, those were the predictions based on the way that Matariki was appearing. One of the main questions I get asked is, so how do I find Matariki? Now, if you look east in the sky before the sun rises in the winter, you're going to notice a couple of stars. Hine Takurua, which is Sirius, the winter maiden. If you come across to Orion's belt, or which Māori call Tautoru, and then you go left, you'll come to this pyramid shape in the sky, which is Te Kokotā, which is actually the face of Taurus the bull. And if you go just a little bit left, you're going to come to Matariki. So that's how you find it. This should be a group of stars that everyone knows. This is what we generally call the pot. Orion's belt. For Māori, this is Tautoru. And you go left again, and you're going to find Matariki in the sky. Now really, what I wanted to focus on as part of this presentation, and what I wanted to focus on as part of my presentation for Te Kaunihera or Tāmaki Makaurau, is time, and how Matariki is part of a detailed and very complex Māori understanding of time, or our division of time. So here in Aotearoa, we currently follow a 365.25 day solar calendar system. And so 365.25 is how long it takes us to go around the sun. And that gives us our year. And that is a calendar that people follow universally across the world. It's also known as a Gregorian calendar because it was really adapted by Pope Gregory XIII, I think. But it's built off a Julian calendar from Julius Caesar. It has a quarter day extra in there, so every 4 years, you'll all know, I think it's February, we add in an extra day, which gives us a leap year. And that's how we keep our calendar system up to date, because there's an extra day every 4 years. Māori, we followed the sun. We followed the sun to give us season. And if you look east at the sunrise, that will tell you what season you're in. So I'm just going to play this here, and you'll watch during the different months, November, December, that the sun will rise southeast in the summertime, and at the moment it's rising northeast in the wintertime. So it moves and rises in different places throughout the year. So you can tell where the sun is rising, what season you're in. So Māori knew that in the summer it rises towards the south, in the southeast, and in the winter, when it's rising, at the moment it's rising northeast. And that's the reason why the sun at the moment is not in the sky for very long. It's actually just arcs over the sky and sets. Our days are short, our nights are long. It's actually because the earth tilts. And what happens in the summertime is we tilt back towards the sun, and the sun actually looks like it rises towards the southeast, is high in the sky in the middle of the day, and sets towards the southwest, giving us long days and lots of sun. And Māori interpreted this changing position of the sun as a man who goes between his two wives. He has a winter wife and he has a summer wife. His winter wife is Hene Takurua, or the star Sirius that we saw before, and she lives in the sky and far out into the ocean. And he has a summer wife, Hene Raumati, or the summer maiden, and he spends half the year with one wife and half the year with the other. So Hene Raumati here lives on the earth. And she's personified in the root crop vegetables that you dig out of the soil during the summer. And if you ever pull a potato, kumara, taro out of the ground, and you'll see the white roots that come down off that root crop, that's actually said to be the hair, ngā makawe o Hene Raumati, or the hair of Hene Raumati. And so when she is with the sun in the summer, we get these beautiful warm days, vegetables grow, everything is nice and warm. However, he hears the call of his winter wife and he goes back to her, travelling along the eastern horizon towards the north, and they rise together. And if you get up tomorrow morning and you look towards the northeast in the morning, you'll see Sirius rise, and just after she's risen, her partner will rise with her, and we know we're in the winter. So he goes backwards and forwards, and this gives us winter, summer, winter, summer. So Māori understood this, and we could tell by the position of the sun what season we're in. But that wasn't our major marker of time. This was. This is the Māori lunar calendar. And there are many, many, many Māori lunar calendar systems in the country. And the lunar calendar, or the phases of the moon, have a massive impact on our day-to-day lives and our day-to-day activities. If you ever go down to the ocean and you watch the moon, and it's on one side, and it will pull all the water on the planet to the other side. And then it goes across the sky, and all the water follows and goes to the other side of the planet. It has this ability to pull trillions and trillions of litres of water from one side of the planet to the other in about a 12-hour period. So we get high tide, low tide, high tide, low tide. Hence the Māori saying, Rona whakamautai, or the moon who controls the tides. And the lunar phases rise and fall, rise and fall. It's a controller of emotions, it's a controller of activities, and our ancestors would watch the phases of the moon and determine what activity that they were going to undertake during that day. So there were good days to do things, there were bad days to do things. We didn't have this 7-day week where we work from Monday to Friday and then rest on Saturday and Sunday. For Māori, sometimes the worst time to work is Monday to Friday, because they might fall on, say, a lunar phase like Kōrero. And Kōrero means nothing. And that's pretty much what you're going to get done during that period. Nothing. Yet sometimes you'll fall, your tangaro period, which is the highest bit in the lunar phase, falls on a weekend. And you'll get up and wonder why sometimes you'll go to work and it's very difficult to get into something. And other times you'll be there, you'll be absolutely on fire. And for Māori and a number of people around the world, it's because of the lunar phases. So there are lunar phases to do good things and lunar phases to do bad things. When you are looking to celebrate Matariki and view Matariki, the lunar phases will determine when you are meant to celebrate Matariki. You don't just look for the rising of the star. You actually look to the correct lunar phase in the correct lunar month to celebrate the rising of Matariki. But because we've universalised time, and we've universalised time to this Gregorian solar calendar system, and we follow a clock, we have tried to align our Matariki practices and our traditional practices with a Western calendar, and it just absolutely does not work. So when you try and understand your cultural timekeeping practices from within another culture's understanding of time, it quickly falls apart. And I'm going to show you how this works in this next animation. How Matariki works. See, when you follow a Māori lunar or any lunar calendar system, it becomes difficult when you're trying to set that against a Western solar Gregorian system of time, because they are different. The solar calendar is 365 and a quarter days long. A lunar calendar is 354 days long. So there's 11 days difference. And you might think, that's all right, 11 days difference. But then you follow that for 2 years, it's 22 days difference. And when you follow it for 3 years, it's 33 days different. So you're a whole month out. And unless you find a way to regulate that system of time, you're going to fall out of sync. And for many, many people celebrating Matariki, they'll go outside and they'll say something like, you look for Matariki in the first new moon of June, which is Pipiri. And they'll go outside and say, why isn't Matariki in the sky? It's not in the sky because you're trying to look for Matariki by following a Western calendar. Māori and many Māori tribes, not all because there is no universal Māori timekeeping system. They are tribally or resource-based or locational-based. And I think that's really important to understand. I can't tell you how Māori followed time. I can tell you how my ancestors from where I'm from followed time. And quite often, many of these techniques and beliefs were universal, but there are differences from various tribes. But this is how I understand it to work. We would look for Matariki in the correct lunar phase, which is Tangaroa, which is in the last quarter of the month of Pipiri. Pipiri is a month that happens in around winter, and it works like this. In the first year, you're looking to the sky, you'll see Matariki high in the sky during Tangaroa, the sun is very low, you'll celebrate your new year. In the second year, it's going to get closer because of the slippage in time, and in the third year, you won't see it. You won't see it because it's too close to the sun. So what Māori did is they would insert an extra month every 3 years into the calendar system to reset their time, and it's all based on the visibility of Matariki. And this is happening this year. The Tangaroa phase of Pipiri happened on Saturday, gone, Sunday, Monday and Tuesday. There are 4 Tangaroa phases. And on Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, I went outside, had a look at the sky before the sun rose, and I did not see Matariki. And it's because Matariki is too close to the sun. It's just scientific. The sun has to be 16 degrees below the horizon, and Matariki needs to be 5 degrees above in order for you to see Matariki. If it's any closer, the brightness of the sun will wash out Matariki. So this year, I know that we insert a 13th month, and that month is also a star, and I'll come to that soon. But this is just the basics of understanding that the position of Matariki, it has to be viewed in the correct lunar phase of the correct lunar month. And when it is no longer visible in that lunar phase of that lunar month, you add an additional month, and this helps reset your calendar system, your lunar calendar system, back with the sun. It may not seem like an important thing to do, but if you don't do it, then Pipiri, after a couple of years, starts to shift into the autumn, and then after a few more years, it starts to shift into the summer. So you're trying to celebrate your winter in the middle of December because you haven't reset your year. I hope this is making sense. But it's very, very important that we understand that Matariki is more than just indicators of season. It's more than just indicator of weather. It is actually a detailed system of time, and it sits like the central cog that will determine how and when your year starts and ends. This is a very famous phrase. This phrase says, "Tirohi atu a Matariki, kua noho i ngā puke o tautoru, kua mōhi o tātou, ko ia te kai ruri o te tau tahi tahi ki a Pipiri." Okay. Behold Pleiades rising upon the swell of Orion's belt. For we know Matariki measures the year during the first month of Pipiri. Now this is an image that was taken a few years ago down towards Kihikihi in the Waikato. And here you can see the swell of Orion's belt. There's Orion's belt, or tautoru. Remember I told you before, you go left and go left. There is that pyramid shape in the sky. And then here is Matariki. Okay, so pushing Matariki out of the ocean on the swell of Tautoru, and Matariki measures the Māori year. Te tahi tahi o Pipiri, the first month of the Māori year is Pipiri. Now while you can see Tautoru and you can see Te Kokota and you can see Matariki here, what most of you might not realise is up here there are 2 stars. And these stars are both known as Pipiri. So this is the marker of the first month of the Māori year. And all of the Māori names, Pipiri, Hongongoi, Hereturi Koka, Hakihea, these are all of the Māori months. They're actually stars. And these are the different stars that will sit on the horizon in the east just before the sun comes up, that tells you that it's that month. So the sun gives you season, the stars give you month, and the moon gives you your day-to-day activities. This is how the Maori system of time and calendar works. It also is connected to so many other factors. Flowering of trees, the singing and the noises of insects, the spawning of different fish, the migration patterns of birds, all of this feeds in to your system of time. It wasn't a clock, and it wasn't this universal calendar system that we follow right across the world. You actually had to interact with your environment to understand what the time was. And it's probably one of the greatest tragedies with the system of time that we follow today. No longer do we sink our lifestyles into the ebbs and flows of the environment. We don't eat seasonally. We don't, if you're someone like me, you're kind of fat all of the time. You look at the animals in the environment, sometimes they're lean, sometimes they're fat. They go through this whole seasonal diet. They regulate themselves by the changing of the environment. The difference between living a solar Western calendar system of time and a traditional lunar calendar system of time is when you follow a Western system, you dictate to the environment when you're ready. So we celebrate New Year's on the 1st of January every year because we're ready. Or we'll celebrate Christmas at the same time. Or we'll say summer is ended because this is this date in our Gregorian Western calendar. When you follow a Maori system, the environment tells you when it's ready. And that's what happens with Matariki. It's not on the same day every year. It moves depending upon the lunar phase, the lunar month, and whether the star is visible. And so this is pipiri up here, marker of the month. There is the star that starts the new year. This is in the lunar phase of Tangaroa. You can't see Tangaroa, it's about up here. So you look for month, you look for lunar phase, and then you look for the position of the sun. That gives you season, that gives you month, and it actually gives you day-to-day activities. And it starts off this period of time, the celebration that's called Te Mātahi o Te Tau, or the Māori New Year. Now, I want to show you this picture here. That's actually the moon in the Tangaroa phase. There's the Tangaroa moon. Here is pipiri, so I know I'm in the right month of the right lunar phase. Just as the horizon starts to break, there is Matariki there. So you have Tautoru, and you go left, you'll come to this pyramid in the sky, and you just go a little bit left, and there is Matariki there. So I know marker of the new year, correct lunar phase, correct lunar month, just before the sun rises, boom, I celebrate my Matariki New Year. Now, because we've got 13 months in this year's calendar system, Matariki by my read is not viewed and celebrated until the 13th of July this year. That'll be the next Tangaroa phase of the 13th month, which is called Ruhanui. Now, other people have said, well, no, I want to celebrate it now. And that's, like I say, my time system is unique to where I'm from and my understanding of how it works. And I can't tell other people how to celebrate their new year. But it is called Matariki. And because of that, you'd think that you'd need to actually see it in the sky before you start. But it's already started, and that's all fine. But for me, I won't be celebrating until the 13th of July this year, because that's the next Tangaroa lunar phase. You don't want to celebrate in some of the other phases, like kōrero. Like I said before, kōrero means nothing. It's not really a good time to celebrate anything, really. Another lunar phase is atua whakahaihai, which means terrifying demon. Probably not a good time to celebrate either. And particularly Whetū. Whetū is the Māori god of death and disease and plague. It's the new moon. I don't celebrate anything or do anything in Whetū because if you celebrate during Whetū, then there's a high chance that Whetū is going to turn up. So I look for the most prosperous times to celebrate the signs of the year. I mean, who goes out looking for how good and how prosperous your year is going to be during the god of death and disease and plague and pestilence? I mean, that is just a horrible time to go out looking for the signs of the year. But people are doing it, and that's really because there is a lack of understanding of what the lunar phases mean. So here I am, overlooking the Waikato. This is from a place called Hakarimata, where I actually had to climb up on top of a hill. It's quite a climb. It takes people a good hour to get up there, and me probably 3. But it's such a beautiful photo showing lunar phase, star, Matariki, and just at this moment, that's when you open your Māori New Year. I just wanted to bring this up as well because it's connected to our time. One of the things that we have tried to do is Māorify the Western calendar. That's okay. Cultures do this, you know. Cultures evolve and change and adapt, and we incorporate other cultures' practices and beliefs into our culture. And Māori, we've done this for many, many things. And the days of the week are one prime example. The days of the week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, all the way through the week, the 7-day week that we follow now. And when this was first implemented into Aotearoa, New Zealand, our ancestors did the correct thing. They just translated. Monday becomes Mane. Tuesday becomes Tūday. Wednesday becomes Wenere. These are just borrowed words. And they just translated, I guess, the Māori calendar into, the Western calendar into Māori language. And so they started following these days of the week. Then in the 1990s, the Māori Language Commission thought it would be a good idea to make them more Māori, even though they come from a Western paradigm. Let's make them more Māori. And they said, well, where does Monday come from? Monday actually, I think, has Babylonian origins, and it comes from moon, so it's Moon Day. And our ancestors, the Māori Language Commission said, well, Hina is one of the names for the moon, so let's call this day Rā Hina, Moon Day. And Tuesday is actually connected to Mars. It is a Roman god of war. And that's where Tuesday comes from. And then the Taurewhiri Te Reo thought, oh, well, the Māori god of war is Tū, so let's call it Rā Tū. Because there isn't, they said, a Māori name for Mars, which is totally incorrect, because it's Rangawhenua. It's always been Rangawhenua. But they gave it this new name. And now if you have a look at some calendars, it'll say Tūmatauenga is Mars and Rā Tū is Tuesday. I hope this is starting to make sense, because what's happening is we are confusing and trying to not just translate or borrow and change into Māori some of these Western concepts. We're trying to make them Māori, and we're actually teaching our children, this is Māori, this is not Māori. This is a Western paradigm, and I think we need to strike it from the record, because it does not come out of our traditional knowledge bases, and it confuses and muddies the water when it comes to time. We need to stop thinking that everyone has to follow the same time, and we have to universalize time. Einstein says time is relative. Time is relative to you, where you are, your location in the world. And so we need to stop thinking that, particularly from a cultural point of view, that everyone has to follow the same system of time. That is not how our ancestors followed time. If you want to stay in a Western calendar, stay with Mane, Tūrei, Wenere, Taite. But these are not Māori, and I'm on a little bit of my own crusade to remove them from the way that we teach time. Now here's an actual quote from Te Taurewhiri Te Reo Māori. This is the Māori quote. I translated it. All of the following Māori names for the planets have been adopted from ancient classical gods. It was decided that Māori should adhere to this Western approach. So apart from Jupiter, Māori had a traditional name for Jupiter, the rest aligned with this methodology. Māori had a traditional name for all the planets they could see, but there wasn't enough research done, and it is confusing our understanding of time. Māori again, when these 12 months were introduced, Māori just translated them. June, Hune, July, Hurai, August, Akuhata. They just borrowed words. These are our traditional Māori months. which are actually stars. Pipiri hongongo here turi ko ka mahuru. Now, people say pipiri is June. Pipiri is not June. Sometimes pipiri is May, June. Sometimes pipiri is June. Sometimes pipiri is June, July, based on the 11-day slippage that we get between the lunar calendar and the solar calendar. So we need to stop smashing this over the top of this. They are different. If you want to stay in the Western calendar, use hune, hurai, akuhata, noima, and say today is mane o noima, te tuawhetū, the 27th, Monday the 27th of noima. Just stay in the Western calendar. But if you're going to talk about Maori time, today, where we are, you talk about lunar phase of lunar month. So today, if my read is right, we are in Orongo or Pipiri. Orongo is the lunar phase, Pipiri is the lunar month. Pipiri is a star that's coming up in the morning, so I know what month I'm in. Orongo is the lunar phase. So we've just come out of Tangaroa. We will be in Whiro on Sunday, which begins the next lunar month. Now this might seem inconsequential, but it is it's very important when you're trying to understand your timekeeping systems, because so much of our culture is about harvesting and hunting and fishing and planting, and it all feeds into this really locational driven, culturally driven system of time. Just want to come back to talking about Matariki and Pōhutukawa. Here's Matariki here. Here's Orion's belt. Here is this pyramid shape that makes up the sail of this massive canoe called Te Waka o Rangi. Rangi's canoe, not Rangi me, Rangi the sky. And this canoe is actually a canoe that carries our dead across the night sky, night after night, month after month during the Māori year. So Tara Mainuku is the captain of this canoe, and here is this massive net that he casts across the earth. This canoe, this constellation, is seen in the night sky for 11 months of the year. And what happens is when the sun sets, this canoe is seen. Tara Mainuku drops his net to the earth and trawls the earth for the souls of everyone that's died that day. And as the sun comes up, he hauls them back up to the sky, and he takes the spirits of those people and he suspends them from the back of the canoe. Here you can see the kura kura, or the feathers of the back of the canoe. That's where they suspend our dead. And it happens day after day, month after month, for 11 months of the year. Then in the month of Haratua, which is around April, May, this canoe sets in the western sky, and it sets and it takes our dead to the underworld to be prepared. And then we wait for about a month for Matariki to rise on the east, which we're waiting for at the moment. And at that moment, this canoe appears before the sunrise, and Tara Mainuku appears, and just as the sun rising, Māori would call out the names of all of the people that have died since the last rising of Matariki. We would lament them and weep for them one last time. And we call out their names. Tara Mainuku stands on the canoe, takes all of the feathers or the spirits of the people that have died that year and casts them into the night sky to become a star. There's a Māori saying, "Kua whetū rangi hia koe," you are now a star. This is the origins of that saying. And I'm going to show you how this works. This is looking east during Haratua in the Tangaroa lunar phase, watching this canoe. So here you see there is the sun, there is Matariki, and there is that canoe setting into the west, taking the dead to the underworld to be prepared. And we would farewell our dead at that moment. And then we wait for a month. There you can see the Tangaroa lunar phase, looking east. This is before the sun rises. And as this canoe rises before the sun, we farewell our dead, call out their names, and then the sun comes up in the morning sky. Now, it doesn't happen that fast. I just spread that up. It's a little bit slower than that, but that's an indication of the way that Matariki is connected to our dead, and that's the role of Pōhutukawa, who carries our dead across the night sky. So we have a celebration, a traditional celebration to celebrate Matariki, and I think it's wonderful how so many people are starting to celebrate Matariki because it's unique and special to where we are in the world. Now I question why we have to celebrate like Easter and New Year's when we celebrate it. Why can't we celebrate our New Year's in the winter like everyone else in the world does? And why do we celebrate Guy Fawkes and the Queen's birthday and even Halloween these days? I get it, cool, have a celebration, have a day off. But Matariki is unique and special to where we are, and it actually is connected to our environment, and it's connected to three things. Remembering those who have passed. The second thing is about celebrating the present, and the final thing is about planning for the future. And I couldn't think of three better things to gather people together. Traditionally, there was a celebration called Whāngai Te Hautapu, or feeding the stars. Hautapu is a food that you would feed to a Māori god. And so, before Matariki, at about this period we're in at the moment, we would go out and collect a kumara, or a kumara that's been left over from the harvest, and that would be given up to Tipu Anuku, or the god that's connected to the earth. And we would go out and we'd catch a wood pigeon, and because that would be connected to Tipu Arangi. And we would get an eel from the river that would be connected to Whetū, and we would fish out a fish from the ocean that would be connected to Whetū. And like I'm going to on the morning of the 12th of July, just before Tangaroa, I'm going to actually dig a hole and make a umu, or a hāngi, and I'm going to put those foods that I've collected from the environment into the ground, and I'm going to cook them. And then I'm going to wait for Matariki to rise. And just as the sun is starting to flicker on the nights in the morning sky, as Matariki is high in the sky in the correct lunar phase, we're going to have a ceremony called Whāngai Te Hautapu. And this is a group of us just having practice that ceremony. The first thing we do is we go outside and we view Matariki, and we have a look and say, oh yeah, it's going to be a good year to plant gardens this year and to fish. Oh, going to be a great year in the ocean. But it looks like it's going to be a lot of rain this year. So we will read Matariki number 1. Number 2, we would conduct a ceremony called Taki mō Teatea. So we would call out all of the names of the people that have died, and we'll weep for them and mourn them and send them on their journey to become stars. And then the final thing we do is we uncover the top of the oven, and all the steam comes out from the food, the sacred food that's been separated out for Matariki, and it feeds Matariki. Matariki's tired from carrying our dead, tired from bringing us bounty of the year, and so we replenish Matariki with this food, this offering. And here it is. We've taken the food out of the oven, out of the earth oven, and we've put them on this altar. And this is us. That's the altar there. We're facing Matariki there, conducting our karakia, calling out the names. And we had a kumara, we had a eel, we had some mussels and some fish from the ocean, and we had a chicken, because we don't get kōrero or wood pigeon, because we're environmentally responsible. But it's the idea that we're feeding Matariki. And this ceremony, I can find evidence of similar ceremonies fairly much universally across Māoridom, where we would feed stars and feed our various gods in this manner. It's my daughter looking out the window of her dirty windows here in Hamilton, looking at a street lamp, pretending she's looking at Matariki, but is the future of Matariki. I think Aotearoa, we've got this opportunity to make Matariki part of our evolving and changing nationhood. I think it's really important that our identity and our national identity is starting to be more inclusive and incorporate some of these awesome celebrations. Now, people want to continue on with other imported celebrations, that's fine, but I'd really like for Matariki to become universally more part of who we are and what we are, and we reconnect to our environment, to our space, to our world. We come together, Matariki Arowana, we gather together, we take part in feasts, we remember those who have departed, and we celebrate one another. And I'm hoping that that can be the future of how we celebrate as a nation. So that is pretty much the presentation. And this is part of what's happening in Auckland this year, and I really want to thank the council, because the council and ATA has been so supportive of what I do, and I've been really fortunate to have this ongoing relationship with what happens here in the region that I think has done perhaps the most to incorporate Matariki into its yearly activities. And if I can just say that from a Māori perspective, when you awaken a celebration of this nature and you awaken Māori gods, then you can't switch them back off again. You actually have to continue on. Otherwise, I don't want to scare people from the Auckland City Council, but you can't awaken a Māori god and then tell it to go back to sleep. So once you start a celebration of this nature, you have to continue. And I believe that if there's any place that can perhaps put pressure on central government and act as, I guess, a prime example of how Matariki can be part of what we do as a country, is what's happening here in Auckland and Tāmaki. So that is my presentation. Tēnā koutou katoa. Kia ora.